Hi, and welcome to the Miami Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connection. I'm your host, Eric Knowles. We'll be right back.
At Convey, we're not only dedicated to solving today's biggest challenges facing healthcare organizations, we're also committed to predicting and planning for tomorrow's challenges by uniting a family of companies. We combine powerful technology with robust data analytics to deliver integrated end-to-end solutions that achieve meaningful results. Start your journey towards transformative business performance with Convey.
Hi, and welcome back to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connection. I am your host, Eric Knowles, President and CEO of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, and yeah, you already know. I'm excited. You know, when we are building Black business, we are building our community. So I am just so happy and excited to have our guest today, Michael Nozile. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And you know, you're here, but before we get into the reason why we're here, I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and et cetera.
Well, again, good morning and good morning to your audience. My name is Michael Nozile, now Michael Nozile Sr. I do have a Michael Nozile II.
Okay.
I was originally born in Haiti,
Okay.
raised here in Miami. I went to elementary school in Morningside,
Okay.
Edison Middle, when we had an Edison Middle School.
When we had an Edison Middle. Well, see, there was an Edison Middle before there was an Edison Middle.
That's right.
And I went to that Edison Middle.
You're a Red Raider. You're a Red Raider. So graduate in 1989, Edison Senior High School. Attended Austin Peay State University. Came back home to Miami. Went to FIU again. I did my master's degree at FIU in public administration with a concentration in human resource and in public management. And so when I came back home, a couple of things that happened. You see, I grew up in the church.
Okay.
So when I was in the church, the youth ministry in the back in the 80s, I almost said the 90s, that would have been nice. In the 80s was good to me.
Okay.
It helped kept me out of trouble growing up in Miami. So I work at juvenile justice. I was a juvenile justice in Broward County, but I was still involved in my youth ministry.
Okay.
So
When was this?
that was back in the early 90s.
Okay.
Early and mid 90s. So I saw that we had some issues, not both in the church. We was not raising young men, and as a juvenile probation officer, you make recommendation to the court. And one day I went to the court and I saw 27 kids was in chain.
27?
27. And they all looked like me. But I saw that picture before. I don't know what happened that day. Tears came out of my eyes. So that's when I said, you know something needs to change with this whole process. Because, hey, you make a recommendation to the court. That kid back then, that kid go to a residential program for 6 to 8 months. He getting 3 square meals a day. He's getting therapy, but nothing actually happened in his environment. Socioeconomics is still the same. Mom or dad don't have a job still, but something needed to happen from the child perspective and from the parent perspective and the environmental. So that's where the whole gang alternative strategy kind of started.
So that is the name of your nonprofit?
Correct.
Gang Alternative, Inc. And this one particular day, as you said, seeing 27 young men, young Black men that look like you and
That's
myself,
right. That's right.
in a chain gang, basically.
Pretty much. Right.
Basically lost in terms of how society sees them.
Right.
And that sparked your birth of Gang Alternative.
Right.
And how long have you been in business now?
So, non-incorporated 2000, and then we incorporated in 2005. Granted, Gang Alternative DNA was birthed out of what I saw growing up. What kept me out of trouble, right, was the a faith system, which really kept me out of trouble. Sports, again, is the alternative. So the gang alternative is alternative mindset and the way we see things and the way we behave, not just basically keeping kids out of gang, but keeping kids out of thinking in a negative way of themselves. Let's say if your parents was fourth generation in welfare, you don't have to think that you have to be in welfare. We give you another alternative for you not to think you need to be in the same situation, and we give you pathways to show you not to be in the same situation.
And then that's interesting that you say that. Actually, I was on a panel last night, and we were talking about raising young men, and we live just in communities where there are only mothers raising young men or grandmothers, and sometimes even households where fathers are there. And one of the comments that were made that some young men were basically made to go out and do things that we wouldn't normally do, sell drugs. You know, they couldn't come home unless they brought home money. So
Correct.
Are you faced with that? Do you see those type of challenges?
Yeah, so I know this is probably not a popular statement, but I think one of the biggest issues that we have in our society as a whole, especially in the state, is the lack of men being present. I think when you have a lack of men in society, and as those young people coming up, they tend to go sideways. But when you do have men that's tighten things up, I think you have the tendency to see a household that's more whole. I'm raising 2 young men right now. If you look at the data in the late 50s and the early 60s, especially in black household, 85% of household had a mother and a father in the late 50s. But now it's 12%.
Wow.
And that's staggering.
That
But
is.
When you have a society that's in chaos, you're looking at a society that have a lack. I'm not talking about male. I'm talking about men who's taking responsibility to raise their family.
Wow. So, and since we're kind of going down that path, a part of the conversation was, can a woman raise a boy to be a man? And a part of what we're saying is if the man is missing, we're going to go down a path that's going to find us in that 27 young men in that chain gang.
I truly believe, my own personal belief, that the Creator create us for men and a woman to raise a child, right? It's a whole, not just one. So, let me give you a little bit about myself. So, yeah, I'm raising 2 boys, but I was a single dad to a girl.
Okay.
A daddy's girl, and I raised my daughter. But there are a certain component that I couldn't teach my daughter because I didn't understand it. Anything that you could think of, I attempted. I learned how to do hair. I learned a lot. I did research about women cycles to teach my daughter about something I don't know.
Right.
But I truly believe that one piece that was missing is to teach her and how to. Now she's 32 years old. I mean, she called me right now. She has her own kids. She called me about her kids' issues. But at one point, I knew something was missing. But when you're talking about society at large, you do need the main presence to make things
Once you
whole.
stop right there, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Miami Dade College has career paths in anything you want to be. What's your story? Be global. Be cutting edge. Be inventive. Be investigative. Be a hero. What do you want to be? Be the best. Be you. Be MDC.
Hi, and welcome back to the Miami Dade Chamber of Commerce Member Connection. Wow, we're having a great conversation here, kind of going in a couple different directions, but we were just talking about the fact that you're raising a daughter on your own and how you as a man really wasn't, ready to do that. And you had to learn a lot of things, but even with that, you still was not fully prepared to do that.
Correct.
And so now having two sons, continue the conversation.
Well, having two sons, it's great. My daughter is we're real close, but having two sons is a lot easier for me because I know what it's like to be 15-year-old boy or 17-year-old boy. So I know what's in their head. I know what they're thinking. Matter of fact, I tell them what you're thinking before you actually do it, because I see this before.
Right.
It's a reflection of what I've observed before as a man myself, or what I've observed in my friends. So that's why a lot of time I catch them into things they think they can't get away with anything. Yeah.
Right. So Gang Alternative, what are some of the programs that you have?
So if anybody, while your audience is watching, they should go to www.myga.org. Currently, we have about 40 programs under 5 pillars. Workforce development. We realize young people don't live in isolation. So 10 years ago, we start adding adult programs. Mental health services, after-school program, mentorship, HIV prevention and intervention, substance abuse, misuse. We currently have a coalition that's been around for about 12 years now. It's called the Urban Partnership Drug-Free Community Coalition. We sustain ourselves over the past 12 years after the 10 years of funding. We currently have the Youth Build program. The Youth Build program is a pre-apprenticeship program. They help young people from 16 to 24 on construction program. Okay. It's a construction program.
Which is really truly needed these days.
So it's a well-needed in our community, and they help kids who, had some kind of trouble with the law before, to help them get out of the situation that they are in. Again, I mentioned, folks to visit our Gang Alternative website of all the different programs that we have in Miami-Dade County.
Let me go back to the construction piece, because obviously we live in here in South Florida. You see. They call them birds, the cranes. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, there's a crane up.
Correct.
And I was in a meeting a while back, and they said we haven't seen anything yet. There's a lot of stuff still on the books that's still yet to come out. Wow. And so with that, we do need trained individuals to work in the construction industry. How do you take those young men who, like you said, who are going through the program, and then introduce them to actually finding opportunities?
Well, the good thing about it, and this is something that we as a community needs to work on more, not one situation, or in order to address the problem that we have in our community, we can't do it in isolation. There are some programs that we don't have, and we have other partners in the community that have it. So we have partners in the community. We partners with other entities that actually do affordable housing.
Okay.
Where once those kids are trained, we place them into those organizations to get the hands-on training.
Okay.
And then afterward, once that is completed, we have a employment specialist that work with those young folks to place them into jobs.
No. Okay.
There's never enough partners that do affordable housing.
Absolutely.
We need to connect those young folks with.
Have you connected with the Liberty Square project at all?
No, not in this particular project.
That's the one thing that I know that Liberty Square on 62nd and between 12th and 15th, that's something that they have instituted to making sure that they're helping young men who they may be returning citizens.
Correct.
They have records, but a lot of times they cannot get jobs because of that.
Correct.
So the one thing that I know is that the folks, my good friend Albert Milo over at Liberty Square, over at Related Urban, is reaching out and supporting young men and women who are looking for that opportunity to correct their trajectory in terms of living in jobs and being a what would I say, a good citizen.
Right.
Yeah. So what would you say are challenges that you face?
Our challenges, not just my challenges, a lot of CBOs in our community is a lack of funding, a lack of what I call integrated alignment, where services need to be aligned. And I think that goes along with clear communication. I think the system is set up in place where we are not aligned because we have to hustle so much. Every CBOs have to worry about, how do I sustain myself? How do I remain afloat?
Every day.
And every time you get a piece of dollar, it's not enough. It's never enough. You got a $10 billion problem in your community, you get $10,000 to solve it. So that's the constant hustle that you continuously have to go through to survive, because you go into that constant struggle. There's not real time set aside to actually collaborate, to strategize, to have the braided alignment for you to serve the community. You mentioned something, I don't want to get off topic.
Please, go ahead.
Earlier about returning citizen. That's one of our passion. We have multiple programs that works with returning citizen pre and post release. It is my passion because a lot of the folks that's returning to our community looks like me. I know if we don't hire them, if we don't train them and hire them, and who will?
Exactly.
And we have a system that's put in place where we want to hire them in our own agency, but sometimes you have hurdles that is set up where you cannot hire them because, hey, if they can't pass a level 2 background check, they can't work in your organization. If you have a certain credentials, they cannot work in your agency. So that's one of those hurdles, especially now when we have a workforce issue where most entities are looking for good staff. And I think returning citizen are folks that we should hire back in our workplace.
Okay. Now, do you work with, I'm sure you do, asking a question I know the answer, with expunging their records?
Amen to that. Listen, at the end of the day for us, as long as you have a heart to work hard and you're dedicated, and you could think, we'll embrace you. We'll embrace you at Gang Alternative.
So again, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Our phone number is 786-391-2375. I remember that. And if you want to get in touch with me through email, it's info@myga.org.
Okay. This has been the Miami Dade Chamber Member Connection. If you want to get in touch with the Chamber, 305-751-8648. m-dcc.org. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.